There are various seasons of life, and that's today's sermon title, The Seasons of Life. But before we talk about the seasons of life, Ray's going to tell me, what are some things that you like about one of the four seasons? You know, you got winter, spring, summer, fall. Ray's going to tell me, what's something you like about a season? Yep. There's no school in summer. That is a wonderful thing to love about summer. Yes, correct. Yes? Sledding. So I guess that's winter. I would assume it's hard to do it in summer, yeah? Get Christmas. Yeah, Christmas, winter for me is wonderful up until New Year's. Then my least favorite time of the year is actually right now. It sounds mean, but I'm just being honest. Like January, February, March is like, there's not really any good holidays. It's kind of just like in between. Yeah. Over here. That's a good thing? You like this? Okay, I'll give you the bugs. Because in winter, there's no like gnats in your eye or whatever. No cicadas in winter. Remember when cicadas invested? That was horrible when they were everywhere. True story, I actually went outside during the cicada infestation with a tennis racket. And I just smashed some cicadas. And neighbors like, yeah, I felt like a Star Wars character. Anyway, getting distracted. Yes? Ooh. Ooh. So there's good times in every season, is what you're saying. Every season there is at least some point where there's no school or where you're relaxing. There's good things about every season. Yeah, and that's actually the point I'm trying to communicate is there's a good thing about every single season, even the ones you don't like much. Now, raise your hand and tell me, what are some bad things about the various seasons? What are some things you don't like about one of the four seasons? Sir, right here. Ticks? Dude, yes. In the summer, ticks are everywhere. I went on a hike and I pulled off like 4 or 5 off my legs. It was horrible. Yeah, I hate ticks. Ugh. Like it's sorry, I'm getting distracted. Yes, right here. Yep. Is that a certain time of year? Winter? Where do you live? Oh man, dude, get a cat. Wow. Okay, rats are terrifying, man. I don't mess around with no rats. In the back, yes. Yep. Cold? Yeah, the cold of winter. Yeah, not fun. Was that yours? Yeah. Mosquitoes and gnats in the summer, just like, was that yours? Yeah. Just gnats and just the worst. Yeah? Snow. You hate snow? See, I like snow when I'm outside looking at it, or inside looking at it. I don't like snow when I'm outside looking at it, and it's everywhere on the road, in my car, and everywhere. Yeah, I like the idea of snow more than snow in principle. Yeah? Raking leaves in fall. Yeah, it's like, oh, the leaves are so pretty until I have to rake them. Then they're not pretty anymore. Yeah, I feel that. Yep. What? Flu season, like the fall. Yeah, all right, put your hands down. So each season has something to be cherished, something to look forward to, something to enjoy. And then each season also has something to be dreaded, something to not look forward to. Like, you look at the trees and the flowers in spring and you're like, they're so pretty. Look how beautiful they are. It's so lovely outside. And then the pollen hits you and you're like, oh, and you can't breathe as well. And it's like all over the place. Pollen's just gross. Or, the fall, like we said, the leaves are so beautiful to look at and then they fall and then you have to rake them and then they get caught in your gutters and they flood your house. There are good things, and even some of the good things can be the bad things, We can look forward to Christmas and like, oh, wow, Christmas is amazing. And it is. But then it's really busy and, you go to the store and it's like packed there and it's like hard to find a parking spot. So each season of our lives has positives and negatives. And not just the time of year, but I would say the seasons of our life as they fluctuate, what we're going through in that time of our life. So let's read this poem here in Ecclesiastes chapter 3 and talk about how God shows himself to us in various seasons and what we can learn about God through the various seasons of our life. Read with me here, chapter 3, verse 1. For everything there is a season, a time for every activity under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to harvest, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to cry and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to turn away, a time to search and a time to quit searching, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear down and a time to mend, a time to be quiet and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. Pause there for a moment. There are various settings where certain emotions will be brought about because of what you are going through in that moment. There are times when it is appropriate, for example, to be loud, to be crazy, to be just absolutely having a ball and dancing. And then there are times where that would be a very inappropriate thing to do, okay? It'd be a little bit awkward if you're at a funeral, like screaming about a football game. Like, yeah, go Washington Commanders! Whoa! You're like painting your chest. That's not an appropriate time to do that as a funeral, okay? That's a bad time. Or it'd be probably not a great time to cheer for your favorite team at the opposing team's football stadium. You could get attacked, okay? That could be dangerous for you, in fact. And then there's times where, it even transitions even in a moment. Like we go from being quiet in our sermons, we're sitting, we're listening to a sermon, and then I pray, and I'm like, all right, you guys are free to hang out, and so we leave, and then you guys are back there playing Super Smash Bros. Going, Falcon Punch to your face. Like, you go from like this quiet to like this crazy, or to playing Foursquare, or I think it's funny at camp how we go from being in our cabins and having cabin groups and like praying over one another and crying and being very serious, and then an hour later, we're at the show and someone's getting electrocuted with dog shock collars. That's a weird transition. I'm serious. If you were there, it's crazy. That's a weird transition, That some of you are like, I didn't go to camp. What is happening there? Okay. I'm just saying, you should come. It's a lot of fun. Anyway, but there are various seasons, even within the same day. You can go from one day where you walk into class and school's going well. You're getting good grades. You feel close to your friends. Things are just going well for your day. And then you get one phone call, or you have one conversation, or something bad happens where you have an argument with your parents, and suddenly your entire day shifts. The emotions you were feeling, what you're going through, your hope about the future, maybe even the anxiety that you're feeling can increase. And in the same day, you can have this almost roller coaster of various emotions and seasons and activities. And in each one, you're different. And something different is happening to you. And you're experiencing different things. This is life. The author's saying sometimes life is being created. Sometimes life is ending. Sometimes you're laughing, and then sometimes you're crying, and then sometimes you're doing both at the same time, okay? I think that isn't in there, but that's true sometimes where you're laughing so hard you're crying so hard you think it's funny, and you start laughing, and people are like, why are you laughing? And you're like, because I'm crying so much. That's just a weird, some of you are like, I don't do that. What's wrong with you? I'm like, anyway, everyone has these various times in their life, and what our sermon today is trying to communicate is this. What we're trying to learn from this passage is this. That God has something for you in whatever season you are in. God has something to teach you, some lessons, some richness, some improvement, some act of faith that can only be achieved through that time. And I want all of us to look at the various seasons of our day and of our lives and see that there can be purpose, beauty, and sorrow in all of those moments. So let's pick through a couple that we have here, okay? First of all, we see in here, there is a season for everything, every activity under the sun. There's a time to be born, and there is a time to die. Now, someone dying and someone being born are very unique and different activities, right? One is very unique. I'm going to talk about birth for a second, and some of the boys will be like, ew, and some of the girls will still be like, ew, it's pretty gross. But if you think about it, like, here is this child that is now into the world for the first time. It's seeing light for the first time. It's hearing voices that aren't muffled for the first time. It is using its lungs to breathe, and it is experiencing this world that was unknown to it for months at a time. And I think one of the blessings that God gave us is we don't remember being born, okay? Can I get an amen on that? Like, yeah, I don't want to remember any of that, okay? I don't want to remember even the first 2 years of my life, probably. It's probably a blessing that we don't remember those years. But birth is this thing where there's pain, there's uncomfortability, there's stress, and yet there's beauty and peace and comfort with it. There can be, obviously, the uncomfortability of the mother who is sacrificing for her children, who is enduring that hardship, but yet through her sacrifice bores life. Comes a human being. And one of the reasons that we all love children or babies, even if you don't enjoy, the stinkiness of them or, the craziness or the crying, all that, we can at least look at babies and be like, there's something redeemable about this because there's hope of what they could be. wondering, like, is this the next president I'm holding right here? Or what will this child look like? What will their eye color be later in life? How tall will they be? What will their career be? Like, there's this potential of what that person will be in the future. And we all find some interest in that. Some interest in that, some uniqueness, some beauty in that. And yet, there's a lot of hardship that comes with a brand new baby. A lot of crying, a lot of diapers that need to be changed, okay? There's dependency of babies. They need other people to take care of them. They can do nothing for themselves. And the only emotions they have are cry and sleep. That's about it. And go to the bathroom. They have that ability. But there's not much they can do for themselves, okay? Then you have death. And death is a very different experience. Death, there is pain and suffering and hardship. There is sadness and finality to it. There is a heaviness to going to a funeral that's a lot different than going to like a baby shower, okay? Where you're meeting a baby for the first time, than a funeral where you're saying goodbye to someone. And you go to a funeral and people are heavy and hurting and weeping. Some are confused. Some are questioning what's going on with life or what's good or not. And both of those events, a birth of a new child and a death, there is some beautiful things about that, some hopeful things about that, and some sorrowful things, some challenging things, some uncomfortable things. And in each of those seasons, there is something to be learned about God and about life and about ourselves. The same goes for there is a time to laugh and there is a time to cry. I remember thinking that you are not supposed to cry like as a dude. It's like, dudes don't cry. We don't cry about anything except the ending of How to Train Your Dragon 3. Then that's acceptable to cry at. Other than that, no cry. Some of you were like, yeah, I know, that got me, I don't know, but some movies will get you. But anyway, I remember thinking that is not what guys are supposed to do. That's not a thing, okay? And yet, I think if you don't cry, there's something there where you're missing an emotion. You're missing something in life that you're expressing. And if you're someone who I don't cry easily or I don't cry a lot, that's okay. I'm not telling you should cry. I'm not forcing you to. But there's something about mourning, about hurting, about releasing that emotion that actually can be therapeutic, can be helpful. Something where we have this dependency on the Lord and crying, on just releasing how we're feeling. And then in laughing can be good for you too. Laughing can be helpful, but laughing can also be a problem if you just try to cover up the problems in your life with laughter. You see, we need both. There are times where you need to cry and there are times where you need to laugh. And if you're a Christian and you think, well, I'm never supposed to be sad as a Christian, you're completely wrong. You're completely wrong. Christians, sometimes we're going to experience a range of emotions. We're even supposed to experience anger at some times. Anger is a good thing in some situations. Literally, it says here, there's a time to love and there's a time to hate. There's a time to heal and a time to kill. You're like, whoa, what's going on there? Well, there is a time when it is necessary, when actually it is required of you to be violent, to protect yourself or to protect someone you love. You should fight in that moment and protect and even, if necessary, be violent and kill in certain situations for good, for your own life. It is necessary. And the difference is understanding when is it appropriate and when is it not. Likewise, there are times where it is appropriate to not be violent. Where it is appropriate to say, you know what, I feel in my heart, I want to be angry, I want to be violent, I want to be rude, but I'm not going to be led by my emotion. I'm going to pull back. And at this stage in my life, in this moment, it is appropriate to be at peace, to calm myself. Do not make the mistake as Christians of believing you're not supposed to experience emotions. God experiences emotions, and we're made in his image. And that is why we have emotion. The challenge is this: do not be owned or controlled by your emotions. Do not be owned by your anger where you do things that are wrong because sin, or I should say anger, is leading that. I would even say happiness can be a problem. Happiness, the emotion of happiness can be an issue when you say, I don't want to sacrifice the emotion, the feeling of happiness right now to do what is right. I'm really happy, I'm really comfortable, I'm liking where I am, and I'm happy, and I don't want to give that up to do what God wants me to do, or to do what's right in this moment. That's a problem. And so we don't want to be led by our emotions in a negative way. Other seasons of life, there are times when it is completely appropriate to be at ease, to be at peace, and to rest. Rest is not an evil thing. We've talked about this when we talked about laziness a couple weeks ago, how rest and relaxing is good. And also there are times when work is good, and it depends on the situation. And here's the reason I'm being a little bit repetitive in this. It's because life is repetitive. And if we were to zoom out at your life as a middle schooler and look at it from your birth until now, you would notice that there are various seasons of your life that there are advantages and disadvantages to. For example, when you're a toddler, there are some advantages to being a toddler, okay? One, you don't have any real responsibilities, okay? You're not taking out the trash, okay? You don't have homework. When I was a kid, my biggest stressor, this is my biggest stress that I had as a kid, okay? I was 5 years old. My biggest stress was, oh man, I got to get home in time for 4 p.m. because Scooby-Doo comes on TV, and I got to make sure I watch it. Like, that was my, appointment. You know how, people put in their phone, their calendar? They're like, all right, I got, this assignment to work on, and I got this meeting with the accountant, and I got this. I would be like, all right, here's my schedule. It's a packed day, okay? First, I got to eat pancakes. Whew, that is not easy, okay? Because sometimes they get sticky on your hands, and you got to wipe it on your shirt. Then I got to remember to go to the bathroom in the toilet, okay? Not in my pants. That's part of my agenda. I just got a reminder, okay? Oh, and then I got a 4 o'clock appointment for a nap time, and then I got to watch Scooby-Doo, okay? Whew, it's a packed day. That is your day. Okay, and some of you were like, that sounds like an awesome day, okay? I could crush that day. I wish nap time would come back, okay? Because I would be really good at that. And we look at that, but then there's also drawbacks to that season. You can't take care of yourself. You need someone to make you food. You need someone to remind you to go to the bathroom in the toilet. You can't be home alone in that season. And the same things that we look back on and we're like, oh, I missed that freedom and that flexibility. When you're a toddler, you're like, oh, I don't want to take a nap. This is stupid. I have to just lay down and rest. And you're like, I just want to lay down and rest. Now you look back on that. And here's the trick. Whatever season you are in, find what is good about that season and rest in that and enjoy that. And think about what you might miss later in life when you're not in that season anymore. You move up from a toddler, you get to elementary school. And you're like, this is exciting. I get to go to school, I get a backpack, I get crayons. And then you get there and you're like, why did I think this was going to be fun? I'm suddenly swamped with work. And then you have classes and responsibilities. Then you take your work home with you and you have homework. But then there's advantages too. You get to have lunch at school. Maybe if you're going to public school and you get to, have your own little card and you get to swipe it and get meals from school, or you get to pack your own lunch. Maybe you're homeschooled and you're like, oh, this is nice. I can work at my own pace. And so there's something about that season of elementary school to be enjoyed, to be cherished. And then there are some things that are challenging about it, frustrating. You're like, I can't wait till I'm in middle school and I get a locker. Or I can't wait till I get to middle school when apparently people date. I don't really know what that is. I think they hold hands or something. I don't know how that works, okay? And it's like a mystery to you. And some people make this mistake. Whatever season they're in, they're waiting for the next one. Oh, I can't wait till I'm in middle school. It's going to be great. And then they get to middle school and they're like, oh, middle school is okay, but I can't wait till I get to high school. Well, I can't wait till I get to college. That's when you really have experienced freedom. Well, then after, I can't wait until I'm out of college and I finish this stupid degree, and then I get a job. Oh man, this job is so hard. I can't wait till I get promoted. Then you see the progress here. And then they're single and they're like, I just want a boyfriend. And then they get a boyfriend or girlfriend. Like, I just want to be married. And then they get married and like, oh, marriage is, I'm just kind of bored. I just kind of want some kids. And then the kids get there and like, oh man, I can't wait till these kids are out of my house and I'm exhausted. You see the progress here where some people are never content in the season of life that they are. Now, don't get me wrong. Some seasons of life, they're just hard. They're just challenging. It's just almost like success is just making it to the next day. I get that. But I hope you're seeing the progression of even in your life. Don't be missing that there is something in this season that you will look back on and you will miss. You look back on and you'll miss. And there are some hardships in this season that one day you will have the blessing of looking back on. You're like, wow, that hardship's over. I'm so thankful that, oh, man, I can kind of breathe that's past me now. And that tested my faith. And that tested my endurance. And it was challenging. But you made it past it. And so in every season, I want us to learn 3 things from the Lord. in knowing the Lord in each season, there's something to be taught to us, something to be learned, something to be absorbed in that activity that possibly we could not learn without it. We couldn't learn without it. The first one is this: knowing God gives hope to us with death. Okay, that's a heavy one. I'm starting off heavy. Knowing God gives hope and perspective to us in death. What do I mean by that? I've done several funerals. I've been to a couple, and I've done funerals for old students of mine. And it is very hard to be at a funeral for a young person. And I think the reason is because older people, it's expected. It feels like, well, yeah, like, you get old and everyone dies one day. But when a young person dies and when their parents and grandparents are there, it is uncomfortable. And it's wrong. And the reason that it feels wrong is because it is. Because we were made to live forever, and we will live forever in heaven or in hell. Our souls will live forever. And death feels unnatural to us because it is a consequence of sin. And that's the reason that we hate death. But back to this story, I was doing a funeral for a young man that was an old student of mine. And it was very challenging to be there, to see his family, to see his friends. It literally felt like a reunion of my old youth group because there were probably 40 or 50 kids in the congregation for the funeral that used to be in our youth group that knew him. And he was a wonderful young man. I love this kid. And I was hurting that day personally, and I had to lead the service. And so were so many others. But there was this hope. And this thing that gave us faith. That I got to stand up in front of everybody, and I got to say, I know this young man. I remember going to camps with him. I remember him coming to youth group. And I know that he received Jesus, that he's a Christian. And I know that one day I will see him again in heaven. And so will any of you that are Christians. There's not much you can say to heal the hurt. There's not anything, actually. But there is this thing that can help you get through the hurt, and it's to know, I have this hope that I will one day see them again. That's about the best I can do right now, is encourage you that one day we will see him again. And it's this even helpful thing because I left that funeral appreciating life a little bit more. My problems felt a little bit smaller after that. The things that were good felt a little bit more rich and beautiful to me. And life was something I cherished and held on to a little bit more tightly and enjoyed just that little bit more because I was faced with the reality and the heaviness of death. And so there is something to be learned in death. And there is hope to be found in Jesus through the hardship and the season of death. When I went to my grandmother's funeral, knowing that one day I'll see her again, and she will have no more Alzheimer's, she will have no more pain or suffering. That was encouraging to me to know that she is now in heaven forever, rejoicing with Jesus, and one day I will see her again. That gives me hope. Now, is it okay to still hurt? Absolutely. It's actually normal to hurt and to feel that pain of loss. But I also felt close to the Lord in that moment. And I hope that you and I can do the same when we are either challenged at the prospect of one day that we will die, that we can have this perspective, yes, I will die on earth, but then I will live forever in heaven with God. That is something that can give me hope to live my life in a different way. Additionally, knowing God gives relief to our pain. It gives perspective and even purpose to our pain. James chapter 1, verse 2 through 4 says this: Dear brothers and sisters, when trouble comes of any kind, consider it an opportunity for great joy. For you know that when your faith is tested, endurance has a chance to grow. So let it grow, for when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing. Here's what this passage is saying. First, it starts off with a harsh reality. It says, when troubles of any kind come your way. It doesn't say if bad things happen to you. It doesn't say, if you happen to be one of those people where hardship and challenge and pain and sadness and death come into your life. It says, no. That's a part of life. When challenging things happen to you, you have this joy. Now, you are not supposed to find joy in the actual thing that is causing you pain. I think Christians make this mistake where they think, well, as Christians, I'm supposed to be joyful all the time, and maybe even like they mistake that as being happy all the time. And even when bad things are happening, I should just smile and push on through. That is not what the Bible is saying here. Okay? Jesus had moments in his life where he wept, where he hurt, where there was challenge and strife and struggle. And he struggled just as much, if not, I will say, he struggled more than any of us have in our lives, both physically, spiritually, socially, in every manner. He suffered, and he knew what it was to suffer. But he also knew that that suffering could produce good. And the suffering of Jesus Christ produced the opportunity for all of us to be saved, for the world to be saved. And in a similar way, the suffering that you and I experience on this earth can be with purpose. I'm not saying with pleasure. I'm not saying enjoyable. I'm not even saying easy. I'm saying it can be with purpose. Now, God does not cause the horrible things in our lives that happen to us, but he can use them for his glory and for his purposes. I could list out the 3 hardest things that have ever happened to me in my life, and each one of those things I can point to a way in which I either grew closer to God, I grew more mature, I grew with wisdom that I was able to share with others that were going through a challenging situation. And even if I had nothing good to point to, I could at least point to this: I am still here. I made it through it. And some days, like I said earlier, that's the best you got is, you know what? 6th grade was a really hard year. It was challenging. It was tough to go to school. I didn't feel connected socially, spiritually. I was all over the place. But you know what? I'm in 7th grade, and I made it. And sometimes that alone is something to celebrate, that you made it. You made it one more day. You made it one more year. And not only did you make it, but when you thought you couldn't keep going, God brought you a little further. Just a little bit. I like this story. I've told this before. I had a coach in middle school who would make us run laps until everyone raised their hand and said, I can run no more. Okay? Because some kids, that'd be like after 2 laps, like, I can't run anymore. And then there are some kids that are really good at running laps and they wouldn't raise their hand for a while. But finally, when everybody raised their hand, he'd be like, all right, cool, we're done. Well, one practice, we all raised our hands and he said, line up, run one more. We're like, what are you doing? We all have our hands up. We're exhausted. We can't even do this. And so we all run one more. And he goes, who can't run anymore? We all raised our hands. Every one of us. We were done, okay? And he's like, cool, line up. We're like, what? What are you doing? This is child cruelty. And we ran another lap, okay? And at this point, when he said, raise your hands if you can't run anymore, we were literally almost too tired to raise our hands, okay? We're just like barely getting them above our heads, okay? And he had us run one more, and then we all collapsed on the ground. He let us breathe for a little bit, get some water. And then he gathered us together. And he said, I want you to remember this. I want you to remember when you thought you were done, when you thought you couldn't go any further, when you thought, I have reached my limit, and then you ran one more, and 2 more, and 3 more. I don't remember if it was 3 or 4, to be honest. But we kept going. He's like, I want you to remember this. And honestly, it was a really inspiring speech, and we lost every game that season. Okay, it was sometimes you get a great coach, they're really inspiring, and your team's just horrible. But anyway, I remember, thinking, even in that season when we lost every game, you know what? We're going to go to the next game, we're going to show up, and we're going to try our hardest. And man, that lesson stuck with me. And I think this needs to be applied to our spiritual life as well, where sometimes we're like, I don't think, Lord, I can make it another day. And then we wake up in the next morning. And the Lord's like, hey, you made it. You thought you couldn't, but you made it, and I'm here with you, and I love you. Let's work on this day. Let's work on this next week, this next month, year. I got you. And sometimes the best thing we can do is look back at how far we've come and just say, Lord, you brought me through that pain. You brought me through that suffering. Thank you. I trust you for whatever is in the future now because I saw what you did in my past. I think it is so helpful to remember the hard times that God has got us through to have hope for the future. I really do. And so when we see this perspective of God can even use my pain, even use my suffering, even use my hurt for his purposes and his glory, it gives some hope in that. And this is what the passage in James is saying. It says, look, this is an opportunity for great joy because your faith will now be tested, and then endurance has a chance to grow. And if you're an athlete, you cannot grow muscles or endurance or strength unless you suffer, unless you push yourself. And the degree to which you are able to handle hardship, whether it's running one more lap, lifting one more rep, throwing one more softball, whatever it is, that degree of hardship that you endure is the degree to which you will then grow and get better. And God is saying, look, I'm not saying that these hardships are easy or are even enjoyable or even good, but what I am saying is something good can come out of them. I can draw something eternal, something meaningful. I can produce in you a resilience, a faith, an opportunity that would not be possible without this challenge or hardship. So consider this an opportunity to grow and to help others. And maybe you don't see in the moment what good that produces. You might look back and be like, God, I don't see how me going through this hardship was any good at all. And my answer would just be, just wait. Maybe some young person will come up to you in the future and say, hey, I'm going through this hard time. I'm going through this. I had a leader come up to me in tears a couple of years ago, and he was like, wow, like when I was in middle school, my parents got a divorce, and it was really hard on me. It was the hardest thing that ever happened to me. But God grew me through that. And I just had a student who I got to talk with and pray with who their parents are going through divorce in middle school. And I was able to say things that encouraged them, that helped them. And if I hadn't gone through that in middle school, I wouldn't have been able to encourage them. And he's like, I'm not saying I'm glad that that happened to me in middle school. I'm saying that God used that, which was horrible, which was painful, which left me weeping. He used it for his glory. Maybe you're going through something right now and you don't see the purpose, and you don't see the meaning, but maybe God is preparing you, building some resilience, building some fortitude, some strength that you will need in the future or that others will need from you. And it can only be produced through this hardship. And as I said earlier, those 3 hardest things in my life, every one of them I can point to and say, God did this through that. Was it fun? No. Was it easy? Of course not. Did I smile the whole time and pray the whole time? No, I wept and I was confused. But God did something there. So whatever stage of life you were in, I hope that you're able to see something in that. And then finally, knowing God gives us greater joy in the highs of our life. Some people will have everything that they wanted and still be miserable. Still, they can't find reason for joy. As Christians, we can find something about every situation that can lead us to give glory to God and find joy in Him. Some richness can be found in every moment. Some hope. If you go to a funeral for someone who's not a Christian and somebody who's not a pastor gets up and shares at that funeral, there's not a lot of hope, okay? It's like, well, they were wonderful, we liked them, they were enjoyable, and now they're gone. There's no hope there. There's nothing good to be pulled out of that. Knowing God gives that hope. Without knowing God, the pain in life is just pain. It's just something to escape. It's just something to get rid of, to either ignore or get away from. It's just something to make go away. But with the Lord, it is something to grow in. Something to get closer to Him by. And in the good moments, there are so many movies and shows that talk about this. Like, good moments are great, but they all go away. Every good moment eventually leaves us and goes away. Whatever gives you joy or pleasure, and we're going to talk about this next week, anything that you enjoy on this earth will one day go away. No matter how good the cake is you're eating, eventually you'll eat it all and get a tummy ache, okay? Or no matter how good the movie is, eventually the movie will end. No matter how good you are at sports, eventually you'll get older and you can't do that anymore. All the things of this earth will fade, but as Christians, I have this hope and this joy that I will live forever in heaven and in eternity, and that there will be no end to joy there. There will be no end to beautiful moments there. You will experience more joy a moment, a second in heaven than you did on your entire time on earth. One moment in heaven, all will make sense to you and to me, and we will have this peace that washes over us. You will never have another insecurity. You will never wonder what it is to not know if you're going to make it. And we have that to look forward to. So knowing God gives us the highest highs and joys, even when times aren't great. So I challenge you, as a middle schooler, do not look forward to the next season and think, oh man, I just can't wait till I get to high school and get this over with. Find what is good about this season, just like we did with winter. Hey, if it's winter, what can I find good about this? All right, it's Christmas and that's fun. Or there are no gnats. Let me enjoy that. Because if you're the person who just in every season finds some reason to complain, that's not helpful. Find the reason to find some good in that. And the things that are challenging in whatever season you have, find them as a reason to grow, to change. And I do not say all this, and please don't take this away and think, okay, well, I'm just supposed to be happy in every season. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that you are to have hope in every season. Because whatever season of life you are walking through, God is with you, and he loves you dearly. So, in this season, honor God, grow in him, and find what he has for you now. Think about, what will I enjoy? What will I look back on in a later season and be like, man, I didn't have that. I don't have that anymore like I did in middle school. And enjoy that, all right? All right, guys, let's pray. Lord, thank you so much for every season of life. Not because every season is easy, but because there is something to be shown to us about you. My wife always says, variety is the spice of life. And Lord, life has a lot of different flavors to it and taste to it and emotions to it. But I pray whatever we are in, might you gain glory in the way in which we go through that season. Whether it's being grateful and thankful when things are good, whether it's being hopeful and having faith even when things seem hopeless. Whatever it is, Lord, might we give glory and honor to you in the way in which we respond in that season and serve you. We love you, God. It's in the name of your son, Jesus, that we pray. And everybody said, amen. All right, if you guys have questions, I'm up here.